Russell Wilson released by the Broncos. We got Justin Fields versus Caleb Williams. Jason Kelce retires. Tee Higgins gets franchise tag. Dylan. So many things happen. Mike Evans gets signed. Welcome to the offseason. Hold my helmet. We're back. Will Reichling, Dylan Boyle here, my partner in crime. How you been, Dylan? I know it's been a little bit.
Been good. Already missing football.
I know.
You know, every week we get something new.
It's funny because you get a little fatigued at the end, especially when you're working on it every week like we were. Mm-hmm. And within a few weeks, I was already missing it.
Yeah, so, I know, absolutely. After the Super Bowl, I'm like, damn, that's it.
So, yeah, I mean, now we're going to get into, now that the Super Bowl's over, obviously, and all this, now we're going to get into free agency. We got the draft coming up. We got so many things to talk about. We got things to talk about today. So go like, subscribe, share. I know it's been a while, guys, but we're going to be pushing content back out. We are back. Hold my helmet. Let's do it. So, Dylan, Russell Wilson, released by the Denver Broncos. That contract was a nightmare. That trade was a nightmare. Some people are calling that maybe the worst trade in NFL history. Where do you stand on that? How do you feel about all this?
Most definitely worst trade in the NFL. Yeah, let's just get right into it and go over what they traded. A little, flashback to 2022. Seattle Seahawks got 3 players. They got a 2022 first round, 2022 second round, 2022 fifth round, 2023 first round, 2023 second round, and Broncos got Russell Wilson, and they also got a fourth round in 2022. So wow, what shot themselves in their foot here.
What a great trade by the Seattle Seahawks, and what a terrible trade by the Denver Broncos. But I don't think the trade, I think Deshaun Watson's trade might go down possibly worse than that. We got to see. It's still playing out. But Russell Wilson, the trade, yes, was bad, but I think the worst part about this was the contract when he didn't even play it down for them. He had, 1-2 years left on this deal? I think the deal that he had before this just ended now, and they paid him. That was such a waste of a contract. Why wouldn't you let him play at least a year on that old deal before you go signing him? You didn't. It was a little crazy to think about.
Crazy is right. $242 million contract for not even playing a snap?
And I get you want to pay the quarterback early because the number's always going up and up and up. But usually my rule of thumb, when you trade for a guy, you should at least give him a year or even half a season before you give him an extension. You got to see if he's going to produce with your team. It could always be a once in a team situation. Seattle Seahawks, Russell Wilson, they ran a specific schemed offense throughout his career, and I was a big Russell Wilson fan, but he predicated on moving out of the pocket, making throws on the run, moving with his legs. And under Sean Payton, he wants those quick throws. He wants that quick release. He wants the ball out of his hands really quickly. And Russ tends to look at the pressure coming at him, and he drops his eyes a little bit. And some of those throws, he wasn't seeing them down the field, and he wasn't hitting them. So that was a big thing.
He might thrive on another team because I just don't think they were adjusting to his liking. But regardless of the matter, this is going to be setting the Broncos back years. I mean, they have $83 million in dead cap.
Yeah, just from this
alone. They can't do anything. They
Right.
can't pick up anyone. And what are they going to do? Are they going to, take a shot at another veteran quarterback? Are they going to stick with Stidham?
Well, the only way you can get out of this hellhole is to hit on quarterback. It's the only way you get out of this quickly. It might take a few years to rebuild. I think next year is going to be kind of a transition year for them, unless they draft a quarterback and he hits. Maybe a Bo Nix, maybe a Michael Penix. I can see Michael Penix playing in that system well because he's very accurate. He can get the ball to his guys. He's kind of like a Drew Brees, maybe a bigger version of Drew Brees a little bit. But Russell Wilson, if you look at his numbers on the surface, last year, it looked like he had a pretty good season. 66 completion percentage, 26 touchdowns, 8 picks, 98 passer rating. But when you really watch the games, something was off. He wasn't the same Russell Wilson. He had a career low in yards per attempt, 6.9, and lowest pass yards per game in his career since his rookie season, 205. So he was basically dinking and dunking, Dylan. Mm-hmm. Very short, check downs, screens, very short passes. Wasn't pushing it down the field a lot. Wasn't
running around. You didn't see the good old Russell Wilson.
A little more than the season before with Hackett. He was a little more mobile, lost some weight, and he did make some wow plays last season. He was decent, but he was not. The numbers are a little misleading in my opinion. And he was based on, like I said, moving out of the pocket, having that deep ball, having that Russ magic. And you saw that sometimes last season, but not to the point where he was in Seattle, and not to the point where he was living up to that contract at all.
No.
And Russell Wilson, it's funny because when Colin Cowherd, I'm a big fan of the Herd and everything, he talked to Sean Payton a lot. They were pretty good friends, had a couple dinners. Sean Payton, when he was asked what are you going to do with Russell Wilson, he said, well, I'm going to get back to what he does best. He's kind of like a basketball player on grass, moving around. That's not what he did. I mean, that's not what he did at all. He kind of basically complained. He used the same system and complained that Russ didn't fit that system. So I get that, but don't say that you're going to play to his strengths and then complain when he doesn't run your exact system. So, I mean, it just wasn't a good fit. And you kind of saw this coming from the beginning when Sean Payton got signed, and here we are.
Yeah. I mean, do you think Sean Payton's going to turn this team around in the long run?
I don't know, but it looks like they'd rather ride with him than ride with Russ. I mean, Sean Payton, that's a good question, though, because he won one Super Bowl with Drew Brees, but is he really a good head coach? I mean, he has had success in the playoffs. They got ripped off a couple of times. The pass interference in the Rams game, the Stephon Diggs last-second touchdown against Minnesota. So they did get screwed a lot in New Orleans, Sean Payton. But then, the bounty scandal, I mean, it can go either way with Sean Payton. I do think he's a good head coach, but maybe he's over his skis here. Yeah. I don't know. It's going to take a couple years.
Listen, this is basically starting from the scratch, ready to go.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to turn this whole team around, figure out what you guys are going to do, what QB you're going to ride with, what schemes you're going to do, how you guys are going to run it. So he has a lot of work ahead of him.
There's a lot of questions there for sure. I mean, other than going to that, let's go into where Russell Wilson might possibly go. A lot of people are saying Steelers. A lot of people are saying Raiders. I do think the best fit is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I know they said that they're going to ride with Pickett. I don't believe them. I think they're lying. I don't know how anyone can say with a straight face, we're going to, Kenny Pickett's our guy. Listen, he's not good, Dylan. I mean, I liked him going into last season, but after what he showed me last season, he's just not good. Maybe he can improve, maybe he won't. But I think that Russell Wilson right now is way better than Kenny Pickett. And this is Russell Wilson at his worst. So, I mean,
I completely agree with that. But the way that they're coming out about it, it sounds like they're not going with any of the veteran quarterbacks.
Stupid.
They said they're not going with Justin Fields. They're not going.
I would go Fields too.
Kirk.
I would go.
They're not going with anyone.
All three of those guys are better than Kenny Pickett. I know some of those guys you would have to pay, but Russell Wilson, you can get cheap. His contract, that's the Broncos' problem. They basically, this is a fresh start, so he could get a cheap contract. So I don't understand that. Yeah. I don't believe them. But
you don't believe them?
I really don't.
I mean, listen, I get that, but at the same time, they said they might pick up Ryan Tannehill. They still got Mason Rudolph, so they have some options to work with.
I'd rather go with Rudolph right now, but we gotta see. Kenny Pickett. I mean, he got hurt last season. They were winning with him, but like you watched those games, Dylan. How many throws did he miss?
Yeah, that offense was non-existent.
And Matt Canada was a big culprit. He got fired. They bring in Arthur Smith, so maybe that improves. But I do think that Russell Wilson would fit under Mike Tomlin's culture perfectly. I think Mike Tomlin's kind of like a rah-rah leadership, like optimistic kind of guy. Yeah. And Russ fits with that perfectly. Sean Payton was more of like critical, kind of like could kind of get on your ass a little bit. And Russell Wilson's kind of like the opposite, like optimistic, like very like holds himself like high and like kind of always looks happy. Tomlin's like tough, but he's optimistic like that, a leader. I think if he fits there perfectly. The only thing I would be worried about with Russell Wilson and the Steelers is those wide receivers kind of complaining a little bit, because you saw last season with George Pickens. Imagine, you've heard players not liking Russ, so I could see it kind of going south there if you went there with those receivers.
He's somewhat of a veteran. I think they would more so look up to him, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, they got to remember those Seattle days. I don't know. It just seems like when Russ gets around,
there's some good receivers over there.
Yeah, Pickens,
so I feel like they would build some good chemistry over there.
And all Russell has to do is get him the ball. He doesn't have to do anything crazy. And that's kind of what he did last year. Like I said, he was dink and dunk, but he was accurate. He had 66 completion percentage. So that's accurate. All he's got to do is to ship it the ball. So, I mean, it could be possible that he might not even get signed as a starter. I mean, I also didn't mention Atlanta. Team,
I don't know. I was thinking maybe the Titans, but they already have Will Levis.
I think they're going to ride with Levis.
You think they're going to ride with Levis?
I think so. I think Atlanta's another reasonable stop, but I think that has Justin Fields' name written all over it. But honestly, let's get into Justin Fields now. Justin Fields, Caleb Williams. It seems like Caleb Williams didn't want to do his medicals for all the teams. He only wanted to do it for the teams that he thought he was going to get drafted by. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. There could be a surprising team that you don't know that like sneaks up to draft you, but then you just get a physical event. I don't really think it's a big deal. I know you want to get a chance to talk to all of these teams, get to know the guy. I'm not crazy about that. I mean, like, I don't have a problem with it, but I'm not crazy about it. Like, I do think that he has a little bit of like a kind of like a when you're making millions though. But when you're making millions as a college player, he probably already has this kind of like a diva, like, not crazy about that, but the biggest thing, I think the biggest story of the combine was this whole Caleb Williams versus Justin Fields thing, and it seems like it's leaning towards Chicago moving off from him. That's that's the stories that the majority of the stories that I'm hearing is that Chicago's trying to move on. I do think that's best from both parties, in my opinion. For Chicago, you want to reset the quarterback contract, get that rookie contract in there, reset that contract. For Justin Fields, why would you want to stay there after like all the uncertainty from the organization and all like the chaos pretty much?
Yeah,
I would want a fresh start if I was Justin Fields. How do you feel about that?
I feel the same way. I mean, I think Justin Fields feels the same exact way. I mean, he unfollowed the organization.
Yeah. What do you think about that? I
know there was people saying he was saying like, oh no, I just wanted a break from football. But come on, man.
I know he probably was lying, but
you don't just do that.
I think deep down he knows that he's gone, but I get it because imagine that was you probably don't want to see it. Like, keep Fields, don't keep. It probably did drive him crazy a little bit, but like, why don't you just delete social media in general? Like, he could have, and there's like options to restrict on Instagram and stuff. There's other ways to not see posts. So yeah, you're right. He's probably was full of shit a little bit.
At the same time, as a Bears organization, how can you pass on somebody like this? It's like, how can you pass on Patrick Mahomes? You can't,
right?
And you won't give that opportunity.
See, I was agreeing with that. Like, I do think Caleb Williams is a legit number one quarterback prospect talent. Like, I think he's a big time talent and a big time prospect. I started to think he's not like as like can't miss as people were making, like I was making him out to be too. Like, I don't think he's like an Andrew Luck, a Trevor Lawrence, or John Elway, and I'll tell you why. As far as the comparison between Caleb Williams and Justin Fields, let's just get into it now because I've kind of like went through Caleb Williams' like draft analysis and kind of what Justin Fields' like original draft analysis was and kind of where Fields is at now. And overall, the concerns for Caleb Williams coming out of the draft are very similar to the concerns with Justin Fields currently in the NFL right now. They both hold on to the ball too long. They both have fumbling issues. They both struggle staying on script and on time in the pocket. They both struggle at making throws from the pocket. But the biggest difference to me between Caleb Williams and Justin Fields is that because both of them get very trigger happy to run out of the pocket and scramble.
Yes.
But the biggest difference between those two guys is Caleb Williams, when he scrambles out of the pocket, his eyes are constantly down the field looking to make a throw. When Caleb Williams scrambles, he's constantly looking downfield, eyes downfield trying to make a throw. Justin Field, when he scrambles, he turns into a runner. He's trying to run. And he's special at it, don't get me wrong, but he takes off. Sometimes he'll look down the field, and don't get me wrong, Justin Fields has a great arm too. Caleb Williams is a decent runner, so they're very comparable. But I think Caleb Williams is the more talent, is more of the arm talent. Like, he has more of a special arm talent. He's constantly has his eyes down the field when he's scrambling, and he's constantly making big plays, like with his arm, throwing outside of the pocket. Justin Fields, when he gets out of the pocket, he more kind of takes off like a runner. So I do think Caleb Williams is more of a natural thrower of the ball than Justin Fields. But it's very close. The big determining factor for me is the contract. You get to reset the contract, and you get a guy that's constantly making plays with his eyes down the field. Like, I think when you have a scrambler, you want a mixture of both. A guy that can keep his eyes down the field and a guy that can run. I think Caleb Williams has that perfect combination. Like, he also is a good runner. He's not a Justin Fields runner, but he's a good runner. And Justin Fields has a good arm, but he doesn't have a Caleb-type arm, making crazy throws sidearm, but he has a really good arm, too. So it's close. It's very close.
I mean, I think Caleb... when he runs, you don't know where he's going. I mean, I feel like that's a great factor, and just the fact that he can throw the ball on the run too, that's just cherry on top. And with this offense, you already have some special pieces. You add up a few more, you still have time to develop. I feel like it probably is the best option to go with Caleb. Give it some time, give it a season or two, pick up some players, then take it from there.
You kind of flipped a little bit. I feel like you were pro Fields. I think it just makes more sense now. Yeah.
It does.
Because, I mean, once you start to realize, like, I think even as a Chicago Bears fan, at first, like, a lot of... I'm sure a lot of fans still feel like this in Chicago, but like they were all for keeping Justin Fields, building around him, maybe drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. But as it gets more realistic that Caleb Williams is probably going to get drafted by the Chicago Bears, you start to think about the prospects of that, and you start to get a little excited, thinking, "Wow, this arm talent, man!" Because let's be honest, Justin Fields has a great arm, but he doesn't have the arm angles that Caleb Williams has. Let's be honest. Like, go watch Caleb Williams' highlight tape. It's like some of the throws he makes, like off his back foot, like with certain arm. It's just plain stupid. But like I said, both of their concerns are very similar, though.
Yeah.
Just in different ways, a little bit, but very similar. The thing about Justin Fields, though, like people are saying he was improving last season, and by the eye test, I agree. He did improve from last season compared to the previous. Like, he looked more confident. He was making better. Like, he made some nice throws. DJ Moore and him had, like, I think he had the highest passer rating to a receiver, him and DJ Moore, out of any duo in the league, quarterback, wide receiver. I saw that. I don't know if that's 100% true, but if that, he's definitely up there. It's like top 2 or 3. But I think think it's number one. But Justin Fields' passer rating per quarter in 2023, because it seems like there's a trend here. First quarter, Justin Fields' passer rating this season in 2023, 112. Second quarter, 91.4. Third quarter, 89.5. Fourth quarter, his passer rating was 55.4. Fourth quarter, within 7 points. So either they're winning by within 7 or losing by within 7. 34.7. There's a trend here. When the moment gets bigger, he shrinks. Justin Fields' fourth quarter stats in 2023, a 51 completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, 6 picks, 53 passer rating. That's not going to get you another contract with the same team in this league. I'm sorry, it's not. And when you still have questions after year 3, chances are you don't have your guy. That's my case. And another thing, I said Russell Wilson had a career low in yards per attempt, 6.9. Guess Justin Fields' yards per attempt last year, 6.9. He did a lot of dinking and dunking too. If you watch those games, there was a lot of screens, a lot of throws behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, it seemed like they didn't trust him with throws down the field in the pocket. That's what it looked like. I don't know. Maybe they were trying to play more to his strengths. I don't know. It just seemed like they didn't have that natural trust in him when it came to NFL quarterback big time throws.
Well, it says it in the stats,
Yeah.
Like if you have these type of stats in the fourth quarter, it seems like they're going to other targets,
Right. And I do think, who do you think's the best team for him if he gets traded? Or do you think Chicago's the best? Like, there's Atlanta, there's Pittsburgh, Tennessee you threw out there for Russ.
I think he would look good on the Commanders, honestly.
Okay. That I forgot. That's a realistic one because they apparently they might. Well, either they might trade up to get Caleb Williams, or they might trade with Justin Fields and then they get Caleb Williams. So, yeah, that could be realistic. I do think the Commanders would be more interested in getting Caleb because Cliff Kingsbury signs the OC there, and he had ties to Caleb Williams and was at USC this past season. So I think it's more realistic they would try to get Caleb or draft a guy. But that would be a good fit, I agree. I got to go with Atlanta. He's a Georgia guy. He's from that state. I'm pretty sure he's from Atlanta, actually, but I think that fits him the best. Like I said, from the area, they have good players on offense. They have Kyle Pitts, who really needs someone to get him the ball. Drake London's turned into a stud. They have players. And that
Bijan Robinson.
How do I forget about Bijan? But that defense really improved last season, specifically that secondary. So I think this is a great fit for him.
They're a few steps away from being, that team.
And their head coach, Raheem Morris, I know he's a defensive guy, but he's a grown-up. Sean McVay loved him. I mean, I've heard really good things about this guy. So I think they have a grown-up head coach. I think you bring Justin Fields in on a second chance, hometown. They got the weapons. Easiest division in the NFL. I think that works. And you have some kind of revival of Justin Fields' career. So
yeah, I like that too. Atlanta is kind of that team that they kind of have it all put together. They just need that QB.
Right. So and Desmond Ridder, I know you liked him at times last season, but you're over that. You're over that now, right? Okay.
He's a good backup.
He is.
He is. He's definitely going to be somewhere.
He can move, and he makes some. He's a little too risky. And there's not enough upside with the risk. But speaking of other quarterbacks, now we're going to go on to Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, his contract's up. Where is he going to go? It's a lot of questions out there, too, because I'm here in Pittsburgh now for Kirk Cousins, too. I think it's best if he stay with Minnesota. It seems like Minnesota's trying to free up some cap space to keep him. I just think re-signing with the Vikings is the best option for both the Vikings and Kirk Cousins. You won I think it was 3-4 straight games before he got hurt, and he was having a career year. Like, he was balling before he got hurt. Justin Jefferson's going to be fully healthy and back. I think the Vikings, if Kirk Cousins comes back, can get themselves into the playoffs in the weaker NFC. So I do think this is probably the best spot for him and the best quarterback for the Vikings to have right now. He was balled last year before he got hurt. He was playing really well.
Yeah. I mean, believe it or not, I think he would be a good fit in the Giants.
That'd be an awesome fit in the Giants. If I was the Giants, I would make that call right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard a lot of sources saying that they're moving off of Daniel Jones.
I think they're going to ride with him this year, but I heard that too. The sources are, I think they're done with him. But it was just a rumor. I think you're talking about the rumor on the Rich Eisen show.
Yeah,
it's a rumor, but I mean, I was hearing buyer's remorse too. That is actually, I didn't think of that.
That's a great fit, wouldn't it be?
If I was the New York Giants, I would call Minnesota. Well, actually, isn't he a free agent?
Yeah.
Go sign that guy. Well, they might tag him, and then they might have to do some kind of sign and trade. But I would call for Kirk Cousins' agent right now because
got some talent around the offense. Obviously, you're not going to keep Saquon.
you're just trapped with that contract right now because you're going to have to eat $40 million this season. So it's tough. It's tough for sure.
Quarterback's a tough position to
I was for paying the quarterback over the running back as far as the Giants. Like I was for paying Daniel Jones and tagging Barkley, but I was not for paying Daniel Jones the $40 million. I was more in the 30. I thought 35 was a stretch.
Hindsight's 2020. But if we would have gave Saquon that deal instead, oh my God, we would have been living.
Yeah, but I think in the long run, this might pay off for you guys. Like I know it's tough right now because you have that attachment to Saquon Barkley, Dylan being a Giants fan. But like it's like the same when Revis got traded for the Jets. It's tough because that's your guy. But I think financially, this is the best thing for you guys because you can get a running. We know how
running backs are very disposable,
and there is value in running backs. Like I think Harbaugh and the Chargers potentially could. This is actually good that we're getting to this topic too because the whole Barkley thing's part of these news, like the whole news cycle right now. Anyway, I think Harbaugh would be willing to pay a running back a decent amount because at Michigan and on the Niners when he was in the NFL, he liked to run the ball, and I think running backs still have value. Look at McCaffrey, man. So I think certain running backs still have value in the league. I think Derrick Henry could get paid possibly. Now, getting paid is different for a running back compared to the quarterback, but
certain teams it works out better when they have a great running back like that. You know, when they have that duo.
Right. Like, let's think about it right now. I mean, McCaffrey is like on one of the best teams in the league, and he's like the best running back in the league. Other than that, like the Chiefs, they have Pacheco, who's a 7th rounder. The Ravens don't really have a running back, like star running back. I mean, Justice Hill started to come on. Dallas, Pollard wasn't much. It seems like most of the good teams don't have that star running back. The Eagles had Swift, but he's not a star. It's if you think about it, there's not.
I mean, these last 2 years, they've kind of been moving off.
McCaffrey's the outlier, but I think McCaffrey's like the outlier in like all the situations. And I think you gotta remember McCaffrey's also kind of like a receiver, so it's like it's not the same situation for that. But I do think. Speaking of McCaffrey and the Niners, like Kirk Cousins, they got Kyle Shanahan loved Kirk Cousins. Originally wanted to get Kirk Cousins. I mean, he's not going there now when you have Purdy just making the Super Bowl. But that would have been an awesome fit. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. I think Vikings.
If
are the best
things would have played out a little differently,
it could have happened.
Season,
right? Exactly.
Sure.
But Mike Evans. 2 years, $52 million, $35 million fully guaranteed. I think this is a huge positive for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I thought Baker Mayfield was going to take a slight regression, fall back a little bit this upcoming season from losing Mike Evans. But now you keep Mike Evans. I think they can run it back in that division and win this division again next season. He'll have his guys back. They have to develop a running game though. But I like Rashad White, but they're going to have to develop more of a running game. I think Mike Evans is still a stud. He had one of his biggest years.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, he's definitely earned that money. I mean, what is it? A 2-year contract. Regardless of the matter, he's still going to be peak performance in those 2 years. Just you could tell by the way he was playing.
He was a stud this year.
Now that Baker's have a little more chemistry with this team, it's going to be a little easier for him too. And he's bowled out some games. So.
He did, and there were games he struggled.
There's a lot of upside with him as well.
There is, and it's a little funny because. This kind of has some ramifications on other teams in the league, like the Chiefs. Like I was saying, this would be a great opportunity for the Chiefs to get him. So, like, how do you think this affects other teams around the league not being able to sign a guy like Mike Evans, like the Chiefs, for example?
I mean, like teams like the Chiefs, it affects them a lot. I mean, I don't think you got to be really good at picking up somebody in the draft, but you kind of want that reinsurance where you know he's going to be a very talented player on our team,
right? And. Another receiver, Tee Higgins. He got franchise tag. There's not many receivers left, Dylan. There's not.
Yeah, they're going quick.
But Tee Higgins can get traded. It might be a tag and trade type situation. So Tee Higgins is still, I think, available to the market. But I think the Bengals would rather get picks for him rather than just give him away for nothing. So I think that they want to run it back one more season. Joe Burrow got hurt. I was
thinking the same thing.
I thought this. They probably thought this was their year. And they started off slow, yes, but they got red hot. Remember that game against the Niners? Joe Burrow was getting really hot really quick. And I think Joe Burrow, when he's healthy, is the second best quarterback in football. I know people have kind of forgot about him after the season. Like Lamar stepped up. Josh Allen is Josh Allen. But I think Joe Burrow, when he's healthy, is the second best quarterback in the NFL. So,
well, he has some competition, man. I don't know. I didn't like the way that he started out. It took him, like half the season to get started?
Yeah.
You can't do this in this type of league, especially in this type of division.
It got a little hairy.
It did.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I need to see a little more from him in the beginning of the season to really see if he's that type of level. I mean, yeah, he had some good seasons behind him, but...
No, right.
Those are behind him.
Exactly. So... there was Mike Evans, big.
So wait,
Go ahead.
who do they have now? They're missing. They're going to be getting rid of Joe Mixon too.
I think Mixon signed. I think that is true. I think Mixon only had like a 1 year deal. I thought it might have been 2, but
so they're going to be missing some pieces on offense as well.
Well, it seems like they want to keep all the guys together for 1 more year, so we'll see about that. But as far as receivers there was Mike Evans, there was Tee Higgins as far as available receivers. There's still Devontae Adams out there. Well, he's not out there. He's on the Rangers, but he was unhappy. Maybe he is happy now getting Antonio Pierce. Maybe they bring in a quarterback like Russell Wilson. He stays there, but I still think Tee Higgins is out there for the market if people want to trade for him. I think Devontae Adams is out there. It kind of sucks that Mike Evans is locked up now, but I think Mike Evans wants to be a Buck for life. I think he's been a Buck his whole career. I think he wants to retire there.
Makes sense.
It does make sense. And I think we'll wrap it up now with Jason Kelce retiring. I think the guy's a legend. He's one of the best centers of all time. I won't say the best center of all time, but one of the best of all time. And he was getting real emotional in his press conference.
Yeah, like a little crybaby, right?
A lot of people, a lot of hate on it. People are such haters on social media, man. The guy is never going to play football again, and people are like calling him a crybaby. Like he's never going to play football ever again.
I mean, listen,
I would be crying my eyes out. I'm also a little wuss. But.
I mean, he didn't have to retire.
No, I thought the thing was there was questions he was going to retire the year before after 2022 after the Super Bowl, and he wanted to run it back 1 more year. He thought this team had potential to win the Super Bowl, so maybe he thought they're not close anymore. So maybe that's actually a sign of a lot of things. Like maybe this could be the telltale sign of the Eagles' future.
Well, especially after this, I mean, the tush push, it's not going to really be there anymore.
Shit. I didn't even think about that.
Exactly. Like this is huge implications for the Eagles.
What if he was like the whole like focal point of the tush push? We might see this season.
That's what I'm saying.
Now your quarterback does squat like 400, 500 pounds.
Yes,
but it's not going to be the same without one of the best centers of all time.
It's not
pushing you,
and I don't know
the touch.
Who
not
who are they
the
replacing him with?
I don't know. This is kind of going to be an ad lib kind of situation now because he's like,
I think that's going to be a big changing point.
How do you replace one of the best centers of all time, the best center in the NFL right now?
I think that's going to affect Hurts a lot.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's the guy that calls out the plays, like calls out the protections at the line of scrimmage. Like centers play a bigger role than people realize. Like I think the left tackle is the most important position on the offensive line, but I think number 2 is center. They call the protections, they call out the mic line. They do a lot at that line of scrimmage, and they're usually the most knowledgeable guy on that line.
Yeah, and he was doing more than he had to on that line.
Yes, way more. Like you know how there's guys that pick up more of the slack for others. He was that guy.
Yeah.
So Jason Kelce, congrats on a great career. We hope you have a wonderful retirement. Now it's time for your brother to retire. No, I'm kidding. He's got a couple more years, I think. But all right, I think we will go with a once every 2 week episode for a little while.
Sure.
I think our next episode, Dylan. So I want you to write this down. I think we're gonna go through the top 5 quarterback prospects. So we got Caleb Williams, we got Michael Penix, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. I guess we'll go 6. Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy. We're going to rank them. So I think that's going to be our next thing next week. Or actually, free agency's coming soon. So maybe we do free agency first. But that's going to be coming soon. Because people love talking about quarterback prospects. Why? I don't know. I guess the possibilities, the potential for the next great guy. But free agency's coming up, I think, either this week or next week. I think it's next week. Or the week after. So that we're going to talk about first.
Yeah, a lot of teams need a lot of weapons.
I know. So I guess we're going to see what happens with that. Other than that, it's a little half-hour episode. Thanks, guys, for everything. Keep supporting us. I know we took a little break, but like I said, we're going to keep pushing back. We're going to keep chugging these episodes out. We're going to get some content pushing out. You know how it is here. We're going to keep improving. We're going to keep doing the best we can possibly do here. We're going to keep. It's a process, man, and we went through our first season, but now technically we're going to be going through our first full off season. We started in May. We never went through free agency. We never went through the draft. This is going to be different for us. It's going to be a challenge, but we're up for it. So thanks, Dylan. Let's do it. See you guys in a few weeks.